My name is Lynn Brannigan. I'm the president and CEO of She Runs It. Welcome to She Runs It, He Gets It. Who has been to this event before with us? Just a couple of you. So this is, I think, the 7th time we've done this with TEEDS. So I guess they like it. I hope it's fun. I love to talk about the fact that the people that have agreed to sit on this panel and the people in the audience probably know how great women are for business. Obviously, we at She Runs It know that as well. But in many organizations at the C-level are men. And so allyship is a really important thing. And so we like to put a spotlight on men and women pairs while we're here in Cannes to really talk about the dynamics of those relationships so you can learn about that yourselves. So what we're going to do today is we're going to spend about 30 minutes having a conversation. My back is going to be to you all, and I apologize for that in advance. I might stand a little bit just so I can see you. And what we're going to do is have a conversation, but you can ask questions, and it's a really good time. I mean, these executives are fabulous people that you don't get a chance to meet very often. And so if you want to ask a question, don't be shy, do it. Come up, take my mic, and ask the question when I invite you to, okay? Does that sound all right? Good. So I thought we'd start out by asking you to introduce yourselves, name, title, and company, and maybe where you are based.
Jonathan Mildenhall, Chief Marketing Officer, Rocket Companies. I work in Detroit and live in Los Angeles.
Lauren Hanrahan, CEO of Zenith, and I live in New York.
Annika Collis, and I'm Vice President of Marketing Strategy, Operations, and Performance for Salesforce.
Justin Clausen. I'm EVP at iProspect, part of Dentsu, and I live in Oakland and work in San Francisco.
And I'm from Seattle. I got that.
I'm Molly Spillman. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at TEEDS. I work in New York and live in Florida, and I live on this boat this week.
Lucky me. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy Helfand. I am Vice President and Head of Advertising for Prime Video, and I live and work in Los Angeles.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Cotter, Managing Director of the newly relaunched 360i. I live in New Jersey and work in New York.
I hear the original 360i people were pretty excited.
Yeah, everyone's excited. Healthy skepticism, but excitement.
And I'm Phil Gorin. I am the CEO of Dentsu Creative Americas and live and work in New York.
Wonderful. So thank you all for joining us. So when we talk about partnerships, usually these things grow sort of organically, and you find the superpowers in each of you. Sometimes you're the yin to the other person's yang, the oil to the other person's vinegar, or the Batman and Robin, where there's a superpower and there's a great supporter. So, and if there might be another thing that you describe yourself as. So going down the line, just as a lightning round question, I'd ask you, how would you call your dynamic?
She's the boss and I'm the client.
I think it's the other way around. He's the boss and I'm the agency person.
Same. I am her client, so I think it's a fun dynamic, though. I think we get to spend a lot of time together.
Great.
We've collectively decided that we are peanut M&Ms. He is the peanut. On the inside, he's the protein, the hard, soul in the middle. And I am the colorful, sugary carb part.
I want us to be like that.
Good answer.
We decided that we are wine and cheese because
Ooh.
I am new to his organization, so we're still getting to know each other. We know we go well together, but we're figuring out the perfect pairings.
Oh, lovely. So appropriate for
Suggestions
Cannes.
welcome.
Yeah, exactly. And in France.
Okay, great. Okay, we're going to start with you, Jonathan. When we talked earlier this month, you said you felt closer to the exit door than your straight white male colleagues. And looking back at your 36-year career, most of the people who bet on you were women. Cindy Gallup, Wendy Clark, Esther Lee, She Runs It knows all of these wonderful people. What did they see in you that others might not have? And how has that shaped you as a champion for women?
So let me first explain quickly what I mean by closest to the exit door. Back in 1990, I was the first ethnic minority to be taken on by McCann Erickson as a official graduate trainee. And I come from a working class background, and I didn't even go to university. I was community college educated. And McCann offered me a position, and they said, this is going to be like an experiment, because there's something about you that we like, but you're not the mold. And I knew that if I posted it in, if I made a mistake, if I turned up half-hearted, then it'd be easy for the agency to get me to leave. Because, I was different. And it was only after 15 years of a good career in London that I put myself into Harvard Business School. And on graduating from Harvard, Esther Lee offered me a job as Vice President of Global Advertising at Coke. And it was at that period I moved into kind of like corporate America. And under the leadership of Esther and then under the leadership of Wendy Clark, I really began to understand how to navigate big, complicated organizations. And Cindy helped me tap into my authentic self. Wendy helped me become a proper seasoned multinational exec. And Esther was the first person to place a bet on me and offer me the job in the first place. And it's true that I've only ever felt genuine mentorship from female leaders. And I feel that female leaders, from my experience of female leaders, is they don't see me for what I am, they see me for what I can become. And that mindset of working with people not because of what they've done, but because they can potentially do, is something that has shaped the way that I like working with my peers, and I like to give voice to those people who around the table aren't necessarily invited to give voice.
That's wonderful. I don't know if you know this, but, a lot of times I always tell my staff, especially when we commuted into New York and came back, I'm always like business on the way into work, party on the way out. So I always read business materials on my way in, and I can read anything I want on the way out. But about a couple of months ago, I was reading LinkedIn, and Jonathan wrote a post and said, International Women's Day is bullshit because we celebrate women for one day and then we ignore them in the boardroom. And I wrote him immediately and said, will you be on this panel? So when you write things on LinkedIn, watch out because
She's like AI.
I might see comment for you.
Scraping.
That's hilarious. Okay, Lauren, changing the game honoree from She Runs It, a friend of She Runs It for a long time now. Your first meeting with Jonathan didn't go according to plan. She had a polished PowerPoint. They're ready for the pitch. You walked in and you realized the conversation could not go that way. You threw that pitch out, instead talking about purpose and values. So how did you have that confidence? He's a pretty bold guy and gave you a bold challenge. So tell us about that.
I'm going to set the stage. It is our first pitch meeting with Rocket. We had no previous relationship. And we walk into this very dark boardroom with a very long table. Jonathan is beckoning his team from down the hallway. Rachel! Jeff! Come! Getting them to all line up. He sits himself in the middle of the table. His team of about 12 people are flanking him on either side, and then the agency, we're sit on the other side. There is a Cannes Gold Lion in the center of the table with like a spotlight on it. And he starts to tell a story of his life. He tells us about how he grew up. He tells us about his career in advertising. He tells us about winning his first Cannes Lion for Coca-Cola and how he believes that creativity drives commercial success. This is 30 minutes. Normally in a chemistry meeting for a pitch, you come in, you put your PowerPoint up, you do your credentials, these are our case studies, all that stuff. And he just was like, this is my show, and he did it. And I was listening intently. He's a fabulous storyteller. And I knew that at some point he was going to be done, and he was going to say, over to you. And I couldn't just be like, great, let's click into our PowerPoint. So I told a story back. And I told him about who we were as a company and a culture and our history and our legacy and why I'm proud of it and how our careers have intersected. When he was at Coke, Publicis was his media agency. When he was at Airbnb, Publicis was his media agency. And I was like, let's do it again. And so your question about what gave me the confidence is a very simple answer. In that room for my team I'm responsible and I've been put in a leadership position and I need to set the tone. And that confidence really comes from all the both men and female bosses that I've had over the years that hired me or promoted me or put me in a leadership position. I just think to myself, if they think I can do it, why would I doubt myself? And I try to just lead from that level of confidence and set a good example for my team and match the energy of fabulous people like Jonathan.
That's wonderful. And you talk about creating a safe space for radical honesty. You both talked about that. How do you, just briefly, how do you make that happen?
Well, he makes that happen. I mean, let's be honest. We're in a dynamic where he's the client, and our job is to deliver the business results for Rocket. But he creates that safe space because he always leads with gratitude. Every interaction we have, he starts with a thank you. He thanks our team. He acknowledges the work that we've done that's been successful. He acknowledges the things that have been hard. He challenges us too and tells us where things could be better, because they always are. But because he leads with that gratitude, it creates a safe space where we know we're appreciated and that we can work through the things that we need to work through together.
Yeah, it breaks down a lot of barriers, so that's absolutely wonderful.
I do genuinely believe that the number one contribution that a client can make in terms of soft skills is creating psychological safety for everybody around the table. And when an agency feels concerned that they might say the wrong thing, or the business is wobbly, or the results are not good, then you see everybody shrink into a very small formal role. But when you can create an environment where everybody feels, all right, things might be bumpy, but we're safe, this relationship is solid. And she does shout at me. I mean, like, our one-on-ones are never easy. She's like, your team's not being, and I like that because she keeps us on the rails. But my job is to create psychological safety for everybody. Otherwise, the work just won't be that effective.
That's fabulous. So Annika and Justin, your partnership is relatively new. You've only worked together for about a year, but you compare Salesforce years as dog years. So the relationship is more seasoned than we might expect. Annika, you talk about being intentional about how you show up, particularly as a woman in a male-dominated environment. So how does that self-awareness shape your partnership with Justin?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say, being a woman in tech, can be an added layer of complexity. And I think, something that I think about in every room that I go into, and that includes kind of our relationship with our agency and my relationship with Justin. Part of that is that you have to meet people where they are. And as women, I think sometimes we have to think about being direct but not too direct, or being confident but not intimidating. And so it's about finding the balance of how you can show up and, kind of be the intelligent woman that you are and lead the room while still giving space to others to feel comfortable and confident and have the ability to kind of have those honest relationships and honest conversations. And I would say that that's something that I bring, every day to our relationship with our agency, whether it's Justin or the folks on his team or on my team, which is about creating that psychological safety. But it's about being open and honest with each other and having opportunities to be vulnerable and to work through the problems. And I think the key to that success is understanding that my success is his success and his success is my success. And that ultimately I can't deliver the impact and the business results that I need for Salesforce if I don't have Justin along for that journey. And I think that's the same way that he feels in terms of the expectations that Dentsu delivers on in terms of meeting the needs of Salesforce.
That's great. I'm remembering now, and Molly, you might not know this, why we started doing She Runs It, He Gets It here. And it was, Kathleen, you might remember this. I spoke to a woman's ERG within Teads years ago, and the women were talking about the fact that the space didn't feel safe, that they didn't, that it was more of a men's club than they liked. And I told the leadership that, and they really wanted to change it. And so they invited me to start doing this and having these conversations and putting more women in leadership roles. And so that's why we celebrate this with Teads every time. I'm going to move on to Justin and ask you, you talked about the importance of speaking to one another in person, having FaceTime, putting aside Slack and Zoom every so often. And, some people are still struggling with that in a post-pandemic world, resisting a little bit about going into the office. Share an example of how that FaceTime has really come to life for you and worked.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's interesting for me, just even stepping back and thinking about the context of Cannes. I think like the value in everybody being here is that face-to-face time. Most of us are stuck staring at screens most of the day, and I just think we've ended up in a world where there's, partially because of that, there's just a lot of transactional conversations that happen through a mediated experience, and when you're in person, it's a different conversation. But I think even if you took aside the context of like in person versus virtual, I think one of the things that Annika and just her leadership style is that the process of getting to an answer matters as much as the answer itself. And it's this idea of safe spaces and investing the team's time and energy and actually sort of working through things together. So I take an example of like, we're always in this place of trying to improve what we do faster, better. And sometimes that's difficult to figure out, how do you do that? Is it that we need to do faster, better? Is it that we need you to do something different to do it faster or better? And you end up in these nuanced discussions, and getting to the bottom of what actually needs to change to unlock something just requires a level of discussion that I don't think you can have in the same way. There's a lot of body language. And so I think it comes back to the same like safe space kind of notion here earlier, which is just when you're in the same room together, I think you can have more open conversations and you feel a level of trust and safety than you do when it's mediated.
That's awesome. So, Molly, I didn't realize that you and Jeremy have known one another for about 25 years until today. You mentioned that to me. Every partnership has its moments where there's disagreement, where there's a challenge from different perspectives. Can you share an example of something you worked through together? You can start with Molly.
Yeah, so first of all, Jeremy and I worked together over 20 years ago when we were in high school.
We were 14, I think.
And we have had really one disagreement where I broke his trust, which was very hurtful for him. And it was when I was pregnant with my second kid, and our desks were near each other at AOL. And he said, "You have to promise me if you go into labor, I'm taking you to the hospital." And I was like, absolutely. We had a pact. He had a pact with my husband. It was all done. So I'm at the office, and not only did I go into labor, my water broke, and I was like, oh, shit. So I put on a towel, and I get on my computer, and Jeremy was in a meeting, and I was like, yo, Jeremy, I'm just going to dry myself. It's cool. And so I dry myself, and to this day, he literally says, I still don't know if I can forgive you for doing that because you broke my trust. So we stayed together all these years, but from a work perspective, I was the CMO, he was the CRO, and we shared an office together. And I look back to those days, and it's really when I realized how important the relationship is between marketing and commercial, or marketing and sales. And people used to meet with us, clients, and say, you guys are unlike any other sales team I meet with, because the two of you are leading your teams to think about the customer first. And so we really like changed the game, and I've kept that with me forever because I've always tried to replicate that wherever I've been. And he was an amazing partner, even though I might have damaged him permanently.
So, Jeremy, I actually started a company several years ago, and I started with a business school friend, and clients would say to us when we would do a pitch, you together make really one good person, really one great person. So I'm gonna dig into with you a little bit about the peanut thing, and your styles. Would you say your styles are different or similar? And just tell us a little bit about like how the M&M peanut comes to life in your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we all really want to know.
Absolutely. So just so you know, the reason why I'm still upset about not being able to drive is because I thought it was my one opportunity to drive fast and break traffic laws in order to achieve something fantastic. And so, I am still a little bit bitter about that. But Molly was also like, Molly is who taught me that women are actually superior beings, and that has really stuck with me for my entire career and my personal life, for that matter. And I think that our communication style, like Molly's very creative, I'm more analytical, and I saw the power of diversity of thought, and how when you bring diversity of thought together, you can achieve really incredible outcomes. And so that really the peanut and the colorful shell. I think that really that diversity of thought and the importance of that has always stuck with me. The other thing that I learned a lot, and by the way, the office that we shared, I think was like 8 by 8 in our like
we were
our
close.
office. Yeah, and so it's just everyone's rhythm of how they execute is different, and so Molly is always like very direct and get to the point, and also the fact at that time where this was an early startup, there was a lot of chaos around us, but Molly, like, I observed her balancing, helping to build this company and at the same time taking care of a young family. And so the way we had to work together in terms of, time shifting and, creating, space in order to, when do you do business, when do you give space, like that lesson has always stuck with me as well. And so I think those are a couple of lessons in terms of communication style and approach and diversity of thought that have always been really important, for our since we were 14, 25 years.
I was going to say, and how old is that child today? And you're still holding on to it? But I won't ask. We'll all just wonder.
Well, it was a missed opportunity.
Christine, you and Phil represent two different leadership perspectives within the same organization. And every strong partnership has moments when one person has to lead and the other has to follow, and vice versa. So in your relationship with Phil, how have you learned when to step forward and when to step back?
Yeah, so I oversee, like I said, 360i as well as social innovation at Dentsu. So my main priorities in my role are delivering a best-in-class social offering, winning in social, and then winning from the 360i perspective. He, as the CEO of Dentsu Creative, is also invested in those things, as well as everything else that Dentsu Creative does. And I think that a pitfall that people could fall into in this relationship is me being singularly focused. Well, Phil, social's the only thing that matters. Just help social, just help social. And Phil, on the other hand, saying, you're the same as everybody else and you'll be treated with everybody else. And I think the dynamic that we have is a mutual understanding that Dentsu Creative doesn't win without social and without 360i winning, and we can't win in a silo because we all win if Dentsu Creative wins. And I think that's how we approach a table together, and I think Phil has seen social as a driver, a growth driver for the organization, and that's why they've invested in the 360i offering. So I feel confident enough that he understands and is invested in my growth, while I understand that we're all pushing together in the same direction. So I think it's that mutual understanding and partnership. And I think what we do really well in the 4 weeks that we've worked together, yeah, it's been a great 4 weeks, is kind of looking at each other in key moments to be like, this is a you topic, you run with it, and then he'll tap me in and vice versa as we build our narratives together versus trying to like step on each other's toes and get to the table first. I think we've gotten a really good kind of vibe and flow with the way that we approach it.
So thank you for that. So I guess I'm wondering, in a relationship, we talked about the fact that there is boss and subordinate, and that's not necessarily productive to get the best ideas out. So what are some tips on how you create a productive partnership to have the best work come forward?
Sure. I think for me, and I hope we all have this philosophy, but I look to hire people that are better and different to what I am, because you're hired for a reason. And what I saw in Christine was someone that could teach me something and could teach our organization something. And when you bring someone in like that, the worst thing you can do is to then squash that and put your own perspective on it. She's there to actually add to our organization. And therefore, you got to get out of the way. You got to support that. And we make big bets in our business. And I think when you make those big bets, you got to stand behind them. And I love standing behind people. This is a story that Christine doesn't even know. since she is newly hired, there was actually two candidates that were really strong, Christine being one of them. And one was a guy and one was Christine. Both candidates were amazing, and I knew that they both could do the job. Christine talked in terms of we and talked in terms of like what we could accomplish together, and the guy talked in terms of I. And sometimes it's as simple as that, you know, like you have to listen to those signals and say like, which one of those do we think is going to make us better as an organization? And, you know, sometimes those simple cues are missed because we all think about building our personal brands now as much as we think about building, you know, brands for companies. But we can't do this alone. This business is tough enough. And so for me, it was like, how do you make sure that when you're bringing someone in that's different, you give them as much flight as possible and be there to catch them if they need support, rather than the inverse of dictating to them what they should do.
Thank you. So I'm going to do a little bit of a sort of a lightning round question, which is, I think everyone in this room would love to know how they could build a partnership like you have built. And so if you could think about, and you could either answer both questions or one, what's one thing someone could start to do now, or one thing someone should avoid in creating a meaningful partnership in business? You want to start?
Genuinely ask for perspective and declare in the room in our first meeting, I needed to be taught, even though I was a CMO and I was running the pitch, I needed to be taught about the ever-changing landscape of media, and I was inviting everybody at Zenith under Lauren's leadership to teach me and my team best practice. And immediately that kind of created the right caliber, not just between her and I, but between all of our teams.
I'll build on that because Jonathan is very good at being clear about what his zone of genius is. His zone of genius is creativity. And because he's so confident in saying, this is what I know, he creates space for those of us with different skills and different strengths to come to the table and say, great, I'm going to respect that, but I'm going to share with you what I know. And there's a real curiosity there to want to learn from each other because we know that each other have different strengths.
Jonathan, where did the curiosity come from?
I've always been a good student. I've always been front row student, hand up in the air, asking questions. 7 years ago, I had a couple of kids, and watching my 7-year-olds and their curiosity for the world around them has actually reminded me to, you know, bring the childlike Jonathan to work, because it's when the childlike Jonathan is looking at brilliant ideas and the adult Jonathan shuts the F up that real breakthroughs kind of happen.
Beautiful.
I would say it's aligned on shared goals. And so one of the things that we have at Salesforce is something called a V2 MOM. It stands for visions, values, methods, obstacles, and measures. And it's essentially the thing that governs our organization. And every single person at Salesforce has it, from Mark Benioff all the way down to anybody who works at Salesforce. And essentially it's the thing that governs how we operate, what success looks like, and I think aligning on that and bringing my V2 MOM to Justin and saying, this is what success looks like to me. How can you, right, help me achieve that success? And what elements are you going to contribute to my V2 MOM in order for us to collectively be successful? So we are 100% laser focused on shared outcomes and shared success.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo that. That's shared goals. I think it's also just communication. And I think, at least from my perspective, the sort of start doing thing is we have a lot of meetings, but it's just really listening. I think this idea of curiosity and wanting to understand, okay, those are your goals, but why? And what does it look like when it's done? And just being probative and curious. And listening more than speaking, because I think so often we get in these situations where you're trying to solve a problem before you've maybe actually fully understood the problem, is so often the case.
I'm going to laugh before I say it. Don't sugarcoat anything. Sugarcoat peanut M&Ms. I thought it was funny. No, I thought it was funny. It's too hot to be funny. But anyway.
I thought it was funny.
Thank you so much. No, seriously, don't sugarcoat anything. You have to be brutally honest and direct, like we said, but just call it like you see it. And it makes people feel empowered to do the same back. And it doesn't mean you have to be overly positive, overly negative. but don't sugarcoat it. You know, it's just like you're in it together.
How do you make that safe, though? I mean, how do you create a culture where brutal honesty can work and not
Because-
sugarcoat it?
I think you just have to communicate in a way that's constructive with positive intent. And I think that people can tell when you're being brutally honest, but you're doing it because you believe in your perspective. You don't think your perspective is the only one. But you also are assuming you've created this place where people assume that you're doing this for positive reasons. And normally people can see through it. They can see your intention, they can feel your vibe, all that stuff. And I think that I kind of pride myself in being able to do that, actually.
Yeah, I've always sort of thought about 3 words that sort of guide me: transparency, consistency are really important, and empathy. So transparency, consistency, and empathy have sort of guided me through hopefully creating a culture my team likes. And when I don't do that, you know, the safe space closes down.
Yeah, I think, speaking of brutal honesty, I also think you need to be brutally honest with yourself in terms of taking an inventory of what am I good at, what am I not good at, what are the skills that I have and maybe don't have, and then seek out partners that you can work with that help complement you to get the best possible outcomes.
I think I would say what you mean and then do what you say. I think that in our industry, there's a lot of talk and a lot of yeah, and a lot of we can do that. And then when you don't deliver it, you erode trust. And especially in a partnership, I think it's very important to say, this is my vision, here's how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to deliver on that. And that opens up the partnership to have that trust that clears the roadway. And then when you deliver, you can just run. And I think I look for that in a partner and a leader, someone that's going to give it to me straight and mean what they say. And if they say, you know, we have a commitment to get you hires or help you with XYZ, if you don't materialize that, then all the trust in the relationship is gone. So I pride myself on, like, if it comes out of my mouth, I'm going to go and do it. You can trust me to deliver it. And I expect that from the people that I work with too.
One big principle for me that I am trying to instill in the entire organization, and I think Christina does a great job of it, but I think it's more important than ever, is just a simple principle of there's more in your control than you think. I think we're on a ride right now that is like going really fast, and there's a lot of consequences, and I feel like people are feeling disempowered by that ride, especially with AI and all the other stuff. There's more in control in your own control than you think. And I think when you just embody that, you'll make better decisions. You'll start to trust yourself more. You'll start to share your opinion more. You'll start to actually express yourself more. And I think that we've started to lose that as we give more over to technology. Not that technology isn't a huge enabler, but it's the interplay between human craft and technology that makes things great. And I think that the more people embody that self-control of, like, I can do more than I think, that's when we grow. That's when we learn. That's when we do great things. So that's what I try and instill in everybody.
So I'm going to ask one more question and then open it up to the audience. And it's just something I've been thinking about as I've been sitting here and listening and learning from you. But do one or two of you have an example when a colleague really had your back? It doesn't have to be one of you. It could be somebody in your career where they really had your back and that it changed the leader you became. While you're thinking about that, I'll tell one story so you have a moment to think about it. But one of the things I've learned in my career at She Runs It is that people hate change. So this organization is 114 years old, and on our when we were 104, we rebranded from Advertising Women of New York to She Runs It. It was a year process. It was, involved very smart brand strategists. We got our whole board engaged, and it's 2 weeks from when we're going to rebrand. And a board member who was on this board the whole time raises her hand and says, "I'm not supporting the rebrand." And it was sort of late in the game. And another board member stood up and said, "Well, Lynn's done everything we've asked of her. Why not? Why are you not saying this until now?" So this woman, because she was so supportive of me, gave me the courage to do something that could have really gone badly. And what I did was I said, "Let's take it to a vote right now." 20 people in the room, and I asked them to raise their hand. 4 people said they didn't want us to do it. 16 said yes. And then I had the courage, it gave me courage to say, if in the future you don't have the ability to speak up, you don't have a right to sit at this table. And then the rest of the board said, "Here, here." So it gave me the courage to trust my gut and to lead with the confidence and knowing that I did everything they said. But it was a scary moment. I did hug her after it, that person. Anyone else have a story?
During the courtship of Rocket and Zenith, I made a declaration that we would come together and we would all do the best work of our careers. And one of the ideas on the table was to cut from our Super Bowl spot and have the stadium singing Take Me on Country Roads live. And Fox and the NFL said no when we went to make that pitch to them. And secretly I was relieved because it was complicated. 2 weeks before Super Bowl 2025, Fox decided that that would be a great idea and potentially they could monetize that idea with other advertisers. And so Molly called a meeting 2 weeks out of Super Bowl. She called a meeting, all of my team, all of her team. So there were about 20 people on this call, and she was like, right, Fox has said in 2 weeks' time, we'll do Never Been Done Before, live broadcast. And I shat myself. Because I was like, no, I don't want to take this risk. And Molly took herself off Zoom and said, Jonathan, you said that we would do the best work of our careers. This will be the best fucking work of our careers. So are you going to deliver? In front of all of my team. And I was just like, yeah, Molly, of course, we will do it. And then spent the following 2 weeks sleepless. But what I loved is her confidence and Zenith's confidence to hold me accountable for meeting the bar that I set during the pitch. And she had the courage.
Wonderful. One more story?
I mean, I have one. I spent many years at Microsoft before I came to Salesforce, and I had a wonderful woman mentor there. And I came to her one day and said, I'm really upset. I did not get a promotion that I thought I deserved. And I saw another person, a man in the organization, who proceeded to get promoted from a level below me to my level, and then my level to a level above me, all before I had received my promotion. And I came to her and I said, what am I doing wrong? And, one of the things that she said to me is kind of, I summarize in terms of you can get better or you can get better. And what she said is that I don't know what he is delivering, and it's not a fair comparison to compare me to what he is doing. I don't know what he's working on. I don't know what he has necessarily delivered, and I don't know the decisions that went into his promotion. And what I can focus on is what I can control, and what I can control is how I show up. And it's something that I've carried with me every day for the rest of my career, that when change is happening around me or when something feels unfair, what I can focus on is what I can control, and that is how I show up. And ultimately, as long as I am in control of that element of things, I am able to let go, I think, of the clutter and the noise that happens around me and focus on kind of the elements that are going to make me successful and make my contributions worthy and noticed. And I think it was just a really defining moment for me, where we can get so caught up in what's happening to the other people around us, and we can get caught up in the comparison of what we're doing compared to what somebody else is doing. And that can make you bitter, and it can make you lose focus of the things that actually matter. And so it was in that moment that she said, there's no right or wrong decision. You can be bitter, and you might have every right to be. But if you are bitter, you ultimately won't be better, and you won't be successful in your current role, and you have to make the decision that's right for you. But every time you have to be willing to make the decision. And if you're bitter, then you have to do something about it. And if you're better, you can progress in your career.
That's fabulous. So, audience, I told you that there was going to be time for Q&A. Most women are very uncomfortable at this moment because I'm looking at you, asking you to stand up. And I invite the men in the room also to come up. But who wants to take my mic and have a moment to ask a question to these great people? You want me to walk around? No, I can do it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, you said women have historically bet on you as you've grown in your career. How has that impacted who you've decided to bet on?
I always, and anybody who's been in a business meeting will vouch for this, I always solicit the opinion of everybody in the room. Nobody is in a meeting with me and doesn't expect to speak up. So first of all voices are heard in meetings with me. But then secondly, I do have a bias towards building relationships and supporting women and people of color. Because there aren't enough of us in business. And sadly, particularly in the US, given everything that's gone on over the last couple of years, there are less and less of us. And I still have the courage to call it out. When I walk into the room and I'm the only brown person in the room, I will make a point of that. And when I walk into the room and I'm the only guy in the room, I say, I feel really uncomfortable that we're having this meeting and there's no women in the room. And the more tenured I am and the more senior I am in the industry, the more powerful that observation is. But I do vocalize it.
Can I add to that? I just want to illustrate an example and how that benefits the people around him. In one of our early meetings together, and he has his whole team there, we have the entire meeting. And maybe out of 2 hours, 3 people on the team spoke up during the meeting. Jonathan talked a lot, and there were a couple other gentlemen who chimed in here or there. But there were 12 people in that room on his team. And at the end of the meeting, he said, right, team, we're going to go down the line, ask a question or have an opinion. And every single person spoke. And because he designed that and forced it, it meant that our agency folk, all of a sudden, it democratized that he wasn't the only decision maker. And because we had now heard from everybody, it allowed us to build relationships with each of those individuals and understand what they needed and what their roles were. And I think so many times in business, we orient to the most powerful person in the room and ignore everybody else. And because he does this where he lets everybody talk, it creates better stickiness in business relationships between different partners.
I would just add, I think when you're enlightened like that, you have an obligation to also pass that along. Look for opportunities to help someone's voice. And I think the lessons that I learned in partnering with Molly really helped me throughout my career look for those opportunities to help bring someone else along, to give them the opportunity for their voice to be heard, and that's very rewarding when you see that pay off for someone else. Yeah.
Tell us your name and where you work. I'm Annika Vasquez. It's lovely to have another Annika. I haven't met one in quite some time. And I'm an SVP at Teads based in Los Angeles, so some fellow Angelinos as well. I just finished Emma Greed's book, Start With Yourself. I don't know if you guys have read it. Highly, highly recommend. I drive a lot in LA, so I do the audiobook. But she talks a lot about women being more forthcoming about talking about money. And in my career and my experience managing a team, males 9 times out of 10 will talk about money and wanting to get promoted more than women. So even though they're not deserving of the raise, of the merit increase, all the things. So how do you look at that from a pay equality standpoint of the squeaky wheel getting the grease versus the women doing the work, and maybe they're doing the better work, but they're not, bringing it in and self, promoting. So how do you approach that with your teams?
I can answer that. I think that it's about encouraging women to ask and rewarding them, even if you can't give them a monetary reward, telling them that they're doing the right thing by bringing it to the table. I can't tell you the amount of times that my direct reports would have meetings with me and be like, here's my pitch to get promoted, and I think that my new raise should be blah, blah, blah. And the first words out of my mouth are, I am so proud of you for bringing this to me because women don't advocate for themselves enough. Continue to do this. The answer might then be no, for a plethora of reasons, right? But encouraging them to have that dialogue, I think is great. I think also just encouraging men and women alike to understand salary bands and the reason behind certain salaries at certain titles. I think that when especially junior folk talk, they don't always get the storyline right about why an agency makes decisions. Like, oh, I'm a director and I found out John makes $25,000 more than me. Well, first of all, I just looked at the spreadsheet. No, he doesn't. He lied to you. And then second of all, the director band actually has a $50,000 delta because you could be a new director or a senior director, a seasoned director. I think explaining that to people helps, but at the end of the day, you get a reward, at least if you're on my team, based on your merit and what you deliver and how you show up and that you care. But I think encouraging women to come to the table and have those proposals is a great starting point.
I've had the experience in my career where I've been offered a promotion, a leadership position, and I've just asked the men. I've asked the men that I trust, what should I ask for? Tell me the number. And they tell me the number. They say, you should ask for this, and then they'll counter with this, and then you should be happy with this. And I'm like, okay, got it. What's happening now is it's happening in reverse. The men that I've built relationship with that work for me, when they go off and get new jobs, they say, hey, this is my offer. Is it good? And so it's interesting that dynamic is now happening. People are looking to senior leaders that they trust, whether they're men or women, and they're asking for advice. And I think that's wonderful.
I would like to encourage everybody in a leadership position. It happened to me at Coke, happened to me at Airbnb, happened to me at Rocket. As soon as I get there, I ask to see the salaries, look at the spreadsheet, and without question, guys are always earn more than women. And it's the first thing I do. I sit down and I go, well, I'm not satisfied with this, so we are going to proactively correct. But I don't think enough leaders see payment parity as a priority as they're joining an organization. And when you're new to an organization, you've got greater leverage to go, I don't want to run a team that is inequitable. I'm going to drive equity as I am starting this job. And I would encourage everybody, male or female, just to, as you're starting new jobs, take a look at the spreadsheet and correct what appears wrong.
That's fabulous advice. We have one more question. No. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to ask you one more question then. Sorry. Best piece of advice you'd like to give to the next generation who aspire to be like you?
I mean, I'll just echo back to what I had said earlier, which is I think that for the next generation is come to the office, ditch the computer, like dress up, put on clothes, come in, be social, go out and develop relationships. I just think this is like something that is a leadership team we are just working on, right? Which is just getting physically engaged with the people that we work with. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of extra encouragement to do that. I think it's a new world that we're in, and as leaders, I think we have almost a sort of unique perspective on what we grew up with and something that we need to continue to sort of reinforce the value of.
One more person?
I'll do the obvious one, which is don't be scared of AI. It is the most powerful tool that we have right now to help us do our jobs better, help us run our lives better. And don't be scared of it. Don't use it as your only playbook, but it's a really powerful tool to help us be so much more efficient and so much more powerful, and see the world in new ways, actually. So I think that's really important.
So great. So please join me in thanking Teeds and these wonderful panelists for giving of your time today. I learned something from every conversation. It's so much fun to have the opportunity to interview you. Teeds is hosting us for refreshments after this, and they have music coming too. So stick around if you'd like some rosé and more, I guess. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.